The U.S. National Championships, the most coveted title in America. This year, there'll also be a time trial championship and a new road course up Paris Mountain in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, which is the home of George Hincapie, the favorite. I'm Frankie Andreu, along with Bob Roll for the USA Cycling Championships, and we'd see a beautiful aerial shot of the cliffs of the time trial course. 20.1 miles today.
This is Danny Pate in the start house, former under-23 world champion at this discipline, the race of truth, the time trial, out on his machine. This is the discipline he excels at, and he's looking to add to a national title to his world championships that he's won a few years ago.
This is definitely one of Danny Pate's strengths, time trialing. Obviously, as soon as he comes around this last corner, immediately into the aerodynamic position, trying to get as fast as possible. He has all the advantages, the solid disc wheel, the booties, the solid helmet, and of course the aerodynamic handlebars. And we're going to get ready to take a look at the profile and the course description of this time trial here at Greenville, which starts at the cliffs.
Just over 20 miles in length. It's an out and back course for the first part of the race. Here's the turnaround. The riders will head back on the same course, go back over the same climb, and then this little leg off to the rider's right to the finish line at the cliffs.
20.15 miles long. A couple little climbs, a couple little blips that definitely will prove a challenge to the riders out there. So it's not a matter of just getting into one steady tempo and riding as hard as you can. You have to have a strategy of how you're going to be able to handle this time trial course.
Absolutely. Dan Ramsey in the starting house now from Successful Living. He'll be out on course in a moment using the same type of aerodynamic advantages as all these riders will in the time trial. They call it the race of truth because it is each man out on course by himself trying to go as quickly as possible. A lot of technical turns out on the course, and you can see Danny Pate coming around. Turn number 2 out on the course, pretty narrow there. Jason McCartney in the start house for the very powerful Discovery Channel cycling team. More of a domestic-based pro, but has raced a lot in Europe, including the Giro d'Italia last year.
Jason McCartney has really come into his own as a very, very strong rider, especially making that transition to Europe and riding with Discovery Channel. A very powerful rider. And here, again, we talked about Danny Pate being a favorite. A little bit later on, we're going to see a couple other favorites like David Zabriskie or Chris Baldwin. And Danny really powering it, trying to keep, look at the high RPMs. He's trying to keep that momentum and try to keep pedaling as fast as he can to keep those legs fresh for later on.
Jason McCartney using a little bit bigger gear, knows these roads well, won a stage of the Tour of Georgia in this part of the country just a couple of years ago, and with that win was picked up by the Discovery Channel cycling team. They only bring 2 athletes to the USPRO champions this year, but 2 very strong ones with George Hincapie as well.
And here on the start ramp, just getting ready to take off, Chris Weary, which is the road champion from last year, and he's also an exceptional time trial rider, just coming out in the start ramp. He is going to be trying to focus, and look at Danny Pate going a little bit wide around the cones there, going up the climb. This is the start of the climb. Again, he has to use a little bit small gear, keep that cadence high, try to keep that rhythm and trying to stay focused, because after the top of the climb, that is when you really can make up a lot of time to keep your speed to make sure that you have a fast time.
Some of the effort starting the show on Danny Pate's time. He has the best intermediate split so far, so Pate going well out on course as we see Tom Zerbel in the start house now, Priority Health rider.
Tom Zerbel getting the countdown from the commissars. Got to be a little bit careful in that start ramp because we've seen more than a few riders hit the deck on that start ramp, Bob. And Zerbel is going to go out and try to go as hard as he can to try to get over this course as quick as possible. He's a good time trial, so he should be able to do a pretty decent ride. And here we see Jason McCartney doing a fantastic ride, 41 seconds faster than Danny Pate.
That is a great time so far by Jason McCartney at that split. And McCartney out on course, 41 seconds faster than Pate. So Jason McCartney having a good day in the time trial.
Jason having a very good day in the time trial. And you can see he chose to take a water bottle. It's mid-80s out there. It's very, very humid. So he decided to take a water bottle. Well, not all the riders will have a water bottle with them. Chris Weary humping away on the saddle, trying to give us some big effort, pulling on those handlebars. Chris Weary has had a fantastic fall. In the beginning of spring, he was a little bit sick. Didn't have the great start to the season, but later on he's definitely come on winning a few big races.
Living 3 blocks away from me, actually, in Durango, Colorado. I see him out training every day. Chris Weary in this humid condition, approximately 6,000% humidity today for the riders.
That could make it difficult, but I think one man who's not going to let the humidity bother him, David Zabriskie, by far the favorite, winner of the prologue of the Tour de France last year. Very, very fast rider, and he is going to be so focused on winning this one event.
Dave Zabriskie out on course. We'll take a quick break and get right back to you.
Welcome back to USA Cycling's Pro Time Trial Championships presented by the Cliffs. I'm Frankie Andreu with Bob Roll, and on course right here we have David Zabriskie. And Bob, you think David's been feeling a little bit of pressure leading up to today?
He is the huge favorite. Usually in Europe, he's one of the favorites, but in this, he's the overwhelming favorite. We'll see if that pressure plays out a little bit. Zabriskie struggling a bit early in the year in the time trials, but by the Dauphiné in June, he was absolutely on fire, winning both the time trials at that stage race.
David Zabriskie, one of the phenomenal of many Americans that have been doing very, very well. And David Zabriskie spoke a little bit about how well the Americans have been doing in all of the races and how great it is to have an American championships.
It shows how far American cycling has come. Back in the old days, we didn't have enough riders to fill up enough spots to have our own race. So this year, we finally have enough, and here we are. So I'm excited. I think everyone else is excited. Should be a good race.
I think David Zabriskie's sporting a little bit of that golf ball effect, a little bit of, or tennis ball effect, having a little bit of the hair on the chin. And Danny Pate giving it a full sprint to the line, 43:18, which has currently the best time. But again, we go back to Jason McCartney, who's staying steady at 41 seconds faster than Pate.
McCartney out on course, and Frankie Andreu is going to tell us a little bit about this community that the riders are riding through today.
For more than 15 years, the Cliffs Communities has led the country in commitment to its residents' quality of life. Before wellness was a part of the common vocabulary, the Cliffs founder Jim Anthony was well into creating a place where one's personal best could be achieved through a life filled with purpose and meaning. This serene landscape is a natural gateway to one of the finest wellness programs in the nation, featuring an expert staff led by the former director of fitness for Pebble Beach Resorts. Over 27,000 square feet in wellness centers include the finest state-of-the-art equipment and personal wellness solutions with an indoor heated lap pool, spa treatment rooms, and robust cardio, strength training, and group exercise rooms. But at the Cliffs Communities, wellness is more than state-of-the-art equipment and programming. More than 1,000 acres have been set aside for parks, hiking and biking trails that lead to some of the most spectacular views in the country. In addition, the Cliffs Marina on pristine Lake Keowee gives members access to the best in-on-the-water activities, including kayaking, canoeing, and boating. The Cliffs' own organic farm has recently celebrated its very first harvest. Residents are already savoring the delicious fruits and vegetables from the organic farm at dining venues at the Cliffs. In a place so idyllic in its serenity and natural beauty, with unique four-season microclimate, it's easy to forget that you're merely minutes from incredible centers of cultural and commercial vibrancy. Greenville, South Carolina is a gem of art galleries, fine dining, boutiques, urban parks, and centers of higher learning. The mind, body, and spirit. It's what defines wellness at the Cliffs Communities and sets this incredible, beautiful place apart from all others.
Absolutely beautiful scenery here at the Cliffs and in the start house. This is Bernard Van Olden, an up-and-coming star of American cycling for the Navigator squad. Very good time trialist, and now out on course with that perfectly aerodynamic machine.
Bernard Van Olden, a very, very young, talented rider. I'm sure Navigator's going to try to keep him in here. We have Tom Zerbel, 10 seconds just behind Jason McCartney. So McCartney's actually doing a very, very good time, and Tom Zerbel from Priority Health is actually putting out a very impressive ride too, because he's not one of the names that I think that came straight to the front of everyone's minds at the start of this time trial, but he's proven that he here is try to contend for a win.
Absolutely, a good ride so far by Tom Zerbel, just about 10 seconds slower than Jason McCartney, one of the big race favorites. So this man, like you said, Frankie, not one of the pre-race favorites, but doing a good ride out on the course through the Cliffs today.
Tom Zerbel given a very, very good ride, and this is a chance today for him to increase his stock value and hopefully get noticed by some other teams, a chance to be able to move up. And coming into the finish, Daniel Ramsey, second, 43 seconds slower than Danny Pate, but a very good ride by Dan Ramsey.
That's a great ride by Ramsey, just right behind in the finish for one of the pre-race favorites, Danny Pate. Chris Weary, defending road race champion of the United States Pro Championships last year that he won up in Philadelphia, and out on course in the time trial. He's had a very tough start of the season, but he's coming on strong, winning 2 stages recently at the Tour of Utah. Chris Weary on form now for the U.S. Pro Championships.
Chris Weary very focused for here, but Jeff Lauder also having very good form lately. A lot of these guys have seems they prepared, like the National Championships changed its date. So instead of peaking early season, they've actually focused to be able to be ready for a time trial and the road race later on in the season. And Jeff Lauder out on that time trial start ramp, giving a big shot here. Team Health Net, very powerful team. Always been dominating here in America. So Jeff Lauder's going to try to get up there in the rankings. And David Zabriskie flying on this course, almost 10 seconds faster than Jason McCartney. So Zabriskie coming through with some good legs today.
Zabriskie looking very stylish in his aerodynamic tuck, and I think the beard helps him look good too a little bit, but he is going very well, 10 seconds faster. Good ride by McCartney. Here's the turnaround now. You don't see this very often in European time trials, but a big sweeping U-turn. Not great technique there by Dave Zabriskie, slowing way down, going wide, but now kicking it back up to speed. This is a good ride so far by the man on Team CSC from Salt Lake City, Utah, Big Dave Zabriskie.
Jason McCartney, look at it, giving it, digging it, everything for the finish line. Looks like he's going to be 37 seconds faster than Danny Pate. So a very good ride, 42-41-90. So very impressive ride by Jason McCartney. And those turnarounds can provide, actually they can be pretty tricky because you have to accelerate so hard after that and you lose your rhythm. Bernard Van Alden looks like on a beautiful stretch of road here, going very, very fast, 17 seconds slower than David Zabriskie right now.
Van Alden having a pretty good ride so far. We'll see what that does when he gets to the finish line, how that translates. You can see the aerodynamic helmet there, integrating with the back of his skin suit there, the long sleeve jersey, the shoe covers, the disc wheel, everything designed for going fast, and sometimes it makes it a little bit tricky to handle these machines.
On some of the earlier races in the year, Bernard Van Alden, whenever there's a time trial, that's who they talk about. He's a very good time trial. He's won 3 or 4 big time trial stages, and defending champion who's definitely won last year at the time trial championships, Chris Baldwin, showing some very good form lately. So Chris Baldwin is off at this National Time Trial Championships trying to retain his national jersey. Welcome back to USA Cycling's Time Trial National Championships. We spoke with Scott Bevel, who tells us why the Cliffs are so excited about hosting this great event.
We're excited to have it start at the Cliffs at Mountain Park, our brand new community that'll be launching later this fall, where Gary Player will actually be calling it home. As a matter of fact, Gary Player refers to this area as the Switzerland of America. So he's probably the most traveled athlete of all time, so we're pretty excited to have that label from him. But it's going to finish up at our Cliffs Valley community. So it's one of our more established communities and going to give America a chance to see what we have here already.
As beautiful as the scenery is here, these riders have their head down. I don't think they're checking out all of the green trees and the beautiful hills around the countryside, Bob.
Great place to live, great place to race a bike. Also, here's Chris Baldwin going through one of the corners out on course, overbaking a little bit, having to split the cones there, but safely around that corner. Luckily, nobody was coming the other direction. Baldwin kicking it up here on this little bit of a climb, out on course, defending champion, wearing number 1. He'd love to do that again, especially against a man like Dave Zabriskie, one of the best in the world.
And this is Chris Weary coming into the finish, staying as aerodynamic as possible. He's going to cross that finish line with a 4th place time, 56 seconds slower than McCartney, but a very good time by Chris Weary. And here on course right now is Bernard Van Alden, still doing a pretty good time.
Zabriskie the fastest so far, but Van Alden less than 20 seconds slower at the turnaround. Van Alden, he's a specialist at this discipline, one of the best domestically, and he's trying to do a good time today, starting on a reasonable tempo. Going to try to pick it up before the finish. That time by Jason McCartney proving very tough to beat for any of the riders so far today.
This looks like Zerbel coming in for the finish, gritting his teeth and trying to come in there. A very impressive time, only 38 seconds slower than Jason McCartney. So Jason McCartney's time is holding up there. Nobody's been able to crack that. And these riders on this out and back course, they actually have an advantage because they can see the other riders coming back, so they can kind of gauge their times, kind of see their positioning out there on the peloton. And David Zabriskie, 2 kilometers to go.
2Ks to go for Zabriskie. Very high tempo there, leading up to this little climb. And this is one of the tough parts of the course just before the finish. McCartney leading still, but the time's starting to get a little bit closer. I think that Zabriskie is really wants to win this event today, and he's putting everything into it. He's had an up and down season so far in the time trials, but Zabriskie nearly asphyxiated there trying to get to the finish line. Look at the effort on his face.
Look at that gear that he's pulling. You can see when you ride a time trial like this, you have to have a strategy, and they know this last part is going uphill. David Zabriskie saving a little bit of energy and giving it full gas here. You can see his mouth is hanging wide open. Tried to accelerate over the top of that, getting straight back into the aerodynamic position, trying to go in as quick as possible to keep the speed and keep his momentum as fast as possible. And Chris Baldwin, very, very, very good split. Look at that, 8 seconds faster than David Zabriskie. This is an incredible time for Chris Baldwin coming in this right-hand turn.
A little bit sketchy through that corner there, but Chris Baldwin safely through, trying to get to the finish line. What a battle we have. He has got 5 kilometers to the finish, and he has matched Zabriskie and gone a little bit faster, almost about 8 seconds faster than Zabriskie at the intermediate split.
If Baldwin is getting those radio checks of being 8 seconds faster, he is going to be trying to go because he knows he has an advantage. Here comes David Zabriskie sprinting all out right next to the barriers. Look at the grimace. He knows he has the national championship on the line. And 52 seconds, almost a minute faster than Jason McCartney. That is a flying time. Chris Baldwin in the right-hand corner coming up. This is that last climb where we saw David Zabriskie. This is where Baldwin has to get it going.
The Baldwin has got a little bit of an advantage on Zabriskie. He needs to kick it over this climb. We saw Zabriskie using a very small gear. Baldwin having a hard time finding an adequate gear for that corner. He did pre-ride the course, so he should know all of these turns very well, and he should know that this is a pretty stiff climb just before the finish line.
Baldwin seems to be turning that gear over. He knows if he's getting his radio checks, he's got an 8-second lead. He's got to keep it steady, but he has to keep going. He doesn't know how good a form or how rested David Zabriskie was on this final climb. For Chris Baldwin, it's all or nothing. And right now he's thinking of putting on that national championship jersey one more time.
He would love to defend his title, especially against Dave Zabriskie. Zabriskie, we had a great chance to look at his aerodynamic position, but Baldwin going very well also. Here comes Van Olden to the finish line. That is a good time, but a minute and a half slower than Dave Zabriskie. Zabriskie absolutely flying.
Zabriskie doing an incredible time, a minute 26 faster than some of these fastest time trialers that we have here in America. Final kilometer for Chris Baldwin, flying around this corner in his aerodynamic bars. He knows he's risking everything. He wants to try to keep that speed as fast as possible. Look at him, he's screaming down this hill.
Absolutely, flying through here and getting that wrong. Trying to stop, trying to make it around, and he goes off the road and down into that little bit of a ravine there. He's going to have to really get back going. He had a lead of 8 seconds. He's got to get his bike going. Oh, this is an absolute disaster for Baldwin.
This is a disaster for Chris Baldwin, locking up that rear tire, realizing he was just going too fast and he couldn't make that right-hand turn. Immediately a bike change. But, I mean, obviously this is more than 8 seconds lost here. For sure, Chris Baldwin has lost whatever advantage he had in only 500 meters from the finish.
500 meters from the finish line, and where is Baldwin? Still out on course. Jeff Lauder coming to the line, 7th fastest. That's a decent effort, but almost 2 minutes slower than Zabriskie. But Baldwin just totally miscalculating that corner. 500 meters to go, 150 meters to go. Let's see where he can do. He was 8 seconds ahead. Now he's about 20 seconds behind.
Chris Baldwin, this is just a disaster. Mentally, I don't even know how you could get motivated to go up that hill again. But look at the time, only 32 seconds. He easily lost 30 seconds in that crash. 32 seconds in David Zabriskie. Chris Baldwin was flying today.
Absolutely flying. You're right about that. And what a disappointing finish for Chris Baldwin, knowing that he had this race perhaps in hand, and there is the results. 32 seconds behind Dave Zabriskie from Team CSE, and Jason McCartney, the early leader, in 3rd place on today's race.
Look at Mike Friedman in 4th. Fantastic ride by the TIAA craft. And there's our podium. David Zabriskie, a predicted winner, the favorite. Chris Baldwin right there in 2nd. Jason McCartney, fantastic ride in 3rd place. A superior podium up there.
And we got a chance to talk to Baldwin.
There were 3 corners before that were all just kind of sweepers, and I took each one of those too conservatively. I really slowed way down and got off the bars, and so I kind of said these corners aren't that sharp. All of a sudden I came into a 90-degreer and just went straight through it. Didn't even have time to lean the bike over, so can't blame anyone but myself. You know, you have to know the course and every inch of it. Usually I'm a guy who does, so just ironic.
I didn't know it was McCartney splits. I knew with a short course that it would be a really intense effort, so that's what I tried to do, is go just really hard.
Congratulations to David Zabriskie, and up next, our national road race.
Welcome back to the USA Cycling Pro Championships presented by Charter Communications. I'm Bob Roll with Frankie Andreu. We got a chance to see the riders beforehand.
The day before the USA Cycling Road Race Championships, the top stars were presented on stage, including hometown hero George Hincapie. The crowd was loving it, as were the race announcers. The first ever championship with only American riders.
This is a momentous occasion for us. I mean, as you know, over the last 21 years, the professional championships have included both Americans and European racers, and this is the first professional championship that's American only.
Chris Weary, Saluting the crowd, here's your defending USPRO road race champion, coming on form later in the year. He had a great season last year, and he capped that off. Here's Scott Moniger. He's on the Health Net squad, longtime U.S. professional. I think he's won about 7,000 bike races in his career.
Scott Moniger, a very talented climber, has been on the domestic scene for a long time and wins many races. But Levi Leipheimer from Team Gerolsteiner won the Dauphiné this year. Very fantastic rider. You know, a little bit disappointing in his Tour de France, but an exceptionally strong American for sure.
And that's a good point that you bring up. He's one of the European-based professionals, doesn't get a chance to race in the States that much, and he's going to be loving performing in front of the hometown crowd of this man, George Hincapie, big star of international cycling, stage winner in the Tour de France, helped Lance Armstrong win all 7 of his Tour titles. And George, he's got to be the big pre-race favorite.
And the official race starter is Kenny Knight, cancer survivor who's been treated at the Greenville Hospital System Oncology Research Institute. So that's got to be a huge moment for him as these riders take to the start of this national championships.
Here's our course, All-American field for the first time in the 20-plus year history. Around about Greenville, South Carolina, the leave town, go out into the hills, and there is Paris Mountain, a very tough climb. We have 21 miles per lap, and that's in the finishing circuit. And what a hard race course. 5 laps to complete, plus the 3 finishing circuits. A very, very tough bike race for the riders in the USPRO Championships this year. Maybe much harder than they have been up in Philadelphia.
Ooh, I would say this is going to be a much more challenging course. I've ridden Paris Mountain many times. It's a very, very hard climb. And right here on the front, we have Priority Health leading on the front. They know that the first time up this climb, there could be a selection. It's going to be dangerous, so everybody wants to be in the front, and so these riders are up there trying to protect themselves, making sure that there's not going to be a split in this peloton, because the climb is that hard where it could split the peloton the very first time. It seems to go on forever.
Well, you can see George Hincapie about 5 riders behind the front line there, perfectly positioned. Here's the back of the field. You can see the first time up this mountain, riders already struggling to stay in contact with the peloton. I think the group's been reduced already just a few miles in.
Dave McCook, a very good sprinter here in America, getting dropped off the back. I don't think he's going to enjoy going up Paris Mountain 5 times. The rest of the peloton starting to get strung out. You can see some of the riders in the back. They already have a lot of body movement. You know, they're already feeling the effects of this climb only the first time.
First time up the climb, 1 kilometer to the top for the leaders. And at this moment, the peloton is being led by Levi Leipheimer. Gerolsteiner for the last couple of years, but he will be on the Discovery Channel team next year. He explains why.
As you might know, I started my career in Europe with U.S. Postal, which is now Discovery, and so it's kind of a full circle for me. I've been out on my own for 6 years and learned a lot, but I've also learned that I need a team, and a good team is what I mean. Like Discovery, now I have the best team in the world to be part of, to be behind me, and to go after the bigger races.
Levi Leipheimer talking about how the strength of Discovery Channel will help him do well at the Tour de France. And here's TIA Kref putting the hammer down. A big attack with 1 kilometer to the top. These guys are laying the law. I'm sure Levi Leipheimer wasn't doing an easy pace. So these guys are being very, very aggressive immediately from the gun, trying to split this race up. They want to separate themselves, the stronger riders from the weaker riders, and that's, I think, what we're seeing here at the back. A little bit more of the weaker riders.
You can see the damage being done by that acceleration. 5 riders from TIAA Kref on the front going absolutely hog wild at the top of this mountain, and very, very tough day for the riders in the back, struggling. First time up the climb, already a big separation in the field.
Very big separation. You can see the motorcycle going through. You can see the back markers. They are spread out all over the top. And here's our KOM. It's a very fast ascent. It's all very covered. So you have to watch out for the different transitions from the shade to the sunlight. Luckily, it's dry. And here's our race leader flying down. Levi Leipheimer right behind him. And it's a small group. It looks like about 10 riders. So it'll be interesting. This first lap, we won't probably have such big separation. Riders are still feeling fresh, so they're going to try to come back. But they're going as fast as they can on this descent to try to keep contact as long as they can with the main peloton, because that's their only way to be able to win at the end. The Palmetto Peloton Project was a chance for cyclists to support the Oncology Research Institute of the Greenville Hospital System and the Lance Armstrong Foundation.
Causes for Cancer, the Lance Armstrong Peloton Project. We're going to raise money for cancer, and by the looks of the field out here, I bet they made a lot of money.
One of the riders was Credit Agricole professional Saul Raisin, his first organized ride since his terrible crash in France at the start of April. Saul's dad, Jim, came along also to ride. And Saul's mom, Yvonne, even though not on a bike, was there to lend her support also.
This is Saul's first organized ride since his accident, and he's still a little wobbly, so I just like to stay close and be sure he stays out of trouble.
They told us in the beginning that he probably would never walk again or be able to care for himself, and now to see him riding his bike in a huge cancer ride, it's coming together. It's just wonderful.
With Saul Raisin and his dad, Jim, leading the way, over 200 riders participated in a variety of ride lengths, and in the end, the Palmetto Peloton Project was a huge success, presenting the Oncology Research Institute of the Greenville Hospital System and the Lance Armstrong Foundation with a check for $82,000. And back to the racing action in Greenville, South Carolina, coming through the flat part of the circuits. TIA Cref all over the front. Scott Moninger there sitting on right behind. You can still see some of the heavy hitters. Levi Leipheimer right behind there. George Hincapie trying to save some energy because I think we've only done one lap. We've got a long ways to go.
Long ways to go, 120 miles, just a bit over. Mike Friedman, TIAA Cref, just off the front attacking there. And these riders from TIAA Cref have come to race today. Two of them going off the front, teammates, actually. That is Lewis and McGregor.
Craig Lewis and Ian McGregor going off the front, deciding to tag team it. They're probably getting their Jonathan Vaughter sitting in their car saying, go together. We need all the strength we can up in front, because they might be worried about what's going to happen the second time up Paris Mountain, because that climb is already proving rather difficult for many other riders.
Looks like one of the Toyota United riders closing the gap to the two men from that squad, TIAA Cref. It'll be an interesting battle between the domestic pros that race together day in, day out throughout the season, and some of the European-based pros like Levi Leipheimer. Jeff Lauder with the problem, flat rear tire, and that is very tough luck for the man on the Health Net squad. He had a great tour of Utah, leading most of the way to the last stage. His teammate, Scott Moninger, took over the GC battle then, but Lauder on very good form and hoping to do a good ride today, but that is very tough luck just at the base of the climb to get a flat tire and a bit of a slow bike change there.
That is horrible luck to get, especially at the base of the climb, because now any kind of draft you might be able to get through the cars with a high speed, you're not going to have that much of an advantage. You're going to have to climb faster than what the first group is already going at, and if you have some strongmen on the front setting tempo like there was last lap, Jeff Lauder's going to have a difficult time. Might be able to get some help from the rider that just joined up with him. In the front of the pack, look at that. It's a who's who of the European peloton spread out all across there. All familiar colors that we've seen many times throughout the year on OLN.
Zabriskie, Cruz, Chris Baldwin there. All of the riders, Jason McCartney also on Discovery. And look at how small the front pack is. 100 men started. That looks like Matt Shriver, from Durango, Colorado. So along with Chris Weary, a lot of locals from my neck of the woods. And look at this climb. The riders in the front dropping these men off of the back. Very tough day out on the roads in Greenville, South Carolina.
This is just shattered. There's riders everywhere so early in such a long road race. So someone in the front is really putting the hammer down. You can see it. You can see all the way up there. Right now, these guys are in time trial mode, hanging on for dear life, trying to just stay on that wheel as long as possible. But this is definitely in one long line, and that might be the answer to our question. It looks like Levi Leipheimer has decided to show off a little bit of his climbing ability.
Levi Leipheimer has led both laps up Paris Mountain. He's one of the best climbers in the world. Won the Dauphiné this year, won the Tour of Germany on a big climb, beating none other than Jan Ullrich last year. And he had up and down Tour de France. He had a couple of very good stages in the Pyrenees, but overall slipped a few places from last year where he was contending for 5th and wound up 6th place in the Tour. He's joining the Discovery team next year. And Levi Leipheimer, look at the damage. Maybe 7 guys left after this set of tempo he's doing up the climb. Unbelievably hard riding. Looks like Chris Weary is hanging tough for Toyota United there in the front group with George Hincapie just coming across.
And on the back here we have David Zabriskie, national time trial champion, but I don't believe he's going to be the national road race champion. Just kind of in a very easy gear. He doesn't look very concerned about trying to catch back up to the leaders that just went by with 1 kilometer to the top of the climb. But you can see how strung out, how broken it up, and even a high-quality, strong rider like David Zabriskie getting shelled. And in the front here, we have a very elite group. It looks like Chris Baldwin, Chris Weary, Baja Dali, Burke Swindlehurst. On the front is Levi Leipheimer. I think George Hincapie is in there. So this is a very, very strong man's group, and this is a break that people are going to have to contend with. Looks like Justin England on the back there.
Yep, Justin England climbing very well. George Hincapie taking a look around, seeing who's left. And the answer, not very many guys at all. And George right at the top, but look at Levi right at the front of that group. Here we have the rider Chris Baldwin having a little bit of a hard time at the very top of this climb. 2 to go. Very enthusiastic crowd, and that will give Baldwin a little bit of extra incentive to tack onto the back. Long sweeping technical descent now. 2 times up the mountain, and look at that, Frankie. Only about 10 guys left in the front.
Only 10 guys left in the front. Baldwin will get back on there this lap, but I don't know about next lap if he's already having trouble and struggling. Scott Monitor is going to be 40 years old October 20th. Arguably, you could say maybe one of the oldest racers in the domestic peloton. I would say one of the best riders in the domestic peloton at 40 years old. He has won many races on the domestic scene. Scott Monitor, a staple in American cycling. Here, trying to get back up, not willing to get dropped and willing to give up, because he knows that national championship title is up in front of him, and he has to regain to that front group. Welcome back to the USA Cycling Pro Road Race Championships. And USA Cycling is not only about putting on fantastic cycling, but it's also about making a festival out of it. And the night before, we had a great rock concert for all the spectators. And it looks like most of them were able to get up in the morning and line along the barriers to be able to watch the 120-mile road race today, Bob.
They have been able to get up early this morning to watch Chris Weary pulling through on the wheel of George Hincapie there, big George Hincapie. These are the roads he knows. This is the town he loves. He lives here, and he trains on these roads every single day. And here's a group chasing with a lot of the TIAA Cref riders, just 5 seconds behind the George Hincapie, Levi Leipheimer, Chris Weary group. They can see him just in front of them, and they will all come back together for the 3rd time up this very tough climb. But one has to shudder to think what's going to happen in the last couple of laps up that big, tough climb of Paris Mountain.
If we have already had an explosion like we have, it's been detonation. There's riders all over the place. Michael Creed was on the back of that group. 4 seconds left till they rejoin contact to that first group. And then we're going to have a pretty large group of 17 riders. And pretty much this race, it's going to see who can survive going up Paris Mountain, who can stay on the wheel of Levi Leipheimer, because he has led the last 2 laps. And we still have 3 more laps up Paris Mountain. It's a large group that's going to rejoin, and so I think attacks are going to have to start happening, because these guys are going to have to launch themselves to try to maybe get away from some of the stronger riders in this group who can climb better than some of the not so good climbers.
There's Kirk O.B. from the Health Net squad catching back up to the front group. Levi Leipheimer doing the damage the last time and the first time up the climb. See what he does again. Chris Weary looking behind, seeing a pretty big group reorganizing. Only Freddie Rodriguez has ever repeated at US Pro Champion. Chris Weary having a very good day so far. He had a decent time trial, coming back on form. It's been a long, tough season for Chris Weary after some sickness and injuries early in this season after an incredible campaign in 2005. And there is the local favorite, big George Hincapie from the Discovery Channel cycling team. Was US Pro Champion many years ago in the early days of his career. He was thought of as a sprinter in those days. Now he's become a GC man and fantastic climber as well.
One of the strongest one-day riders in the world, without a doubt. George Hincapie is one of the main strongmen. A lot of pressure on him. Hometown, Paris Mountain. He used to live at the top of that. He knows that climb. He used to, every day, either have to go up it or go down it to get back to his house or getting out to go for training rides. And Chris Baldwin there, disappointed, I'm sure, from a crash in the time trial, but here trying to focus on this road race. And on the front right here, we have the bottom of the start of our 3rd time up Paris Mountain. Toyota United rider on the front, which is Chris Weary. Chris Weary won Cascade, a very good ride there, and 2 stages of the Tour of Utah, so he has some good climbing legs. Justin England on the far left had a broken collarbone early on in the season. You can see this is a very large group, riding a steady pace, not sure. They're trying to feel each other out. They're not sure who's going to be attacking, which wheels to follow, and George Hincapie looking very comfortable in a small gear.
Very comfortable, George Hincapie, the 3rd time up this climb. Looks like Baldwin coming back like a stone. They're having a tough time the 3rd time up this mountain. He was dropped, reintegrated on the descent the last time. It looks to be the first man dropped the 3rd time up this climb. Levi Leipheimer, George Hincapie. Technically speaking, this is the type of a race where you have to pretty much be as strong as the strongest man in the race to stay in the front group. They go straight up the mountain, straight down the mountain, just a couple of kilometers of flat roads right before the climbing starts again. Chris Baldwin putting everything into the time trial a couple of days ago, and now he's been dropped from the leaders in the road race.
And here's our lead group. We can look at all the blue and white TIAA Crest jerseys. A lot of riders there trying to hang in there on the front. Look at that familiar other blue and white jersey from Gerolsteiner, Levi Leipheimer, setting a steady pace. Bajadali is right behind him, it looks like. George Hincapie's in that group.
Phil Zijek sitting on the back there, just a couple of 100 meters to the top. A bit more reasonable tempo this time up the mountain, and this big group staying together. They've established themselves as the best men in this race. but probably less than 20 men left in with a chance just about halfway through the spike race to still win the U.S. Pro title.
And just on the front, I saw an attack by a Jelly Belly rider, Bajadali, trying to go for the KOM and getting a push right there. Rider number 170, Craig Lewis, who has talked about how he's just starting to feel good after a horrible crash 2 years ago at the Tour de Georgia.
It's been a long road, and I finally feel normal this year. You know, I finally get a full year of racing under my belt. But you know, it was a rough 2 years, and I wouldn't want to go through it again. So I'm happy to have that past me. But I think I'm definitely stronger from it.
Craig Lewis obviously showing he's very strong. Danny Pate tagging onto the back of him. And we'll return with the USA Cycling Road Race Championships. Another one of the great events hosted in Greenville was the Family Fun Ride, an opportunity for families to come out and ride along the beautiful pathways of Cleveland Park. This young lady has just completed her treatment for cancer, and she was picked to lead the entire ride. The ride was 6 miles long, and the families had a wonderful time riding their bikes in this picturesque setting. Cycling is a fitness sport meant for everyone, from the beginners to the advanced, everyone having fun on two wheels. In the end, there was time to stock up on liquids as the families prepared themselves to watch the pros compete in the road race. And back in the thick of the action, TIA Kref on the back, fixing some radio problems possibly for rider number 162, which is Blake Caldwell, a very, very strong rider. TIA Kref is all over the place. You see Danny Pate there looking over, speaking to Will Frischhorn. So we've got some strong riders, perhaps making a tactical plan for something to come up.
Well, a big pile of TIAA Kref riders still left in the front. That is great riding from the young team of Jonathan Vaughters. They bring 14 men to the start line in the U.S. Pro Championships this year. They have the numbers, but who knows if they have the strength to compete against the Continental Pros, George Hincapie, Levi Leipheimer. Dave Zabriskie, surprising to see him get dropped early. I think he put a lot of energy into his time trial win just a couple of days ago.
No, I agree. I mean, that had to have been a huge effort. For a lot of these riders, it's all new. I mean, this is the first time they haven't had the national championships in Philadelphia in 21 years. So there's a lot of unexpected out there. They're not sure how this course is going to play out. And obviously, it's a very small group compared to like in Philadelphia where the nationals used to be, where you'd have a pack of 100 for 5 hours. We still have about 2 laps remaining, and we're down to only 10 riders. So now it becomes a very tactical game with the riders watching each other. And on the far right side of the road, we speak of the tactics. It looks like TIA Kref tag teaming again, doing a combo attack.
Going off the front just before the climbing starts, might be Mike Creed there from TIAA Kref. Used to be on the team of Lance Armstrong, U.S. Postal and Discovery. He and his teammate Will Frischhorn going off the front just at the start of the climbing. Let's see if Levi Leipheimer can react to this with George Hincapie. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Will Frischhorn, 2002 under-23 national champion, so he knows what it is to put on a Stars and Stripes jersey. Mike Creed, a very good climber, spent a lot of time in Europe racing over there, and is back here, also a good climber. So Paris, these two riders will be able to get over Paris Mountain, I think, in a good position. But we're going to have to wait to see what kind of reaction we have from this group. And sitting on the back of that group, waiting, holding his patience, trying to stay as rested as possible, Phil Zychek from Navigators.
Just in front of Zychek was Chris Weary, last year's winner, and George Hincapie. Here are our leaders, Creed and Frischhorn, trying to get a little bit of an advantage before the climbing starts. Both of them dropped the previous time, but just by a few seconds, and were able to catch back up on the descent. They want to preempt that, perhaps, with a little bit of attack right now. A couple of more climbs up Paris Mountain.
Did you see all the spectators? Tons of spectators lining the barriers. That is going to motivate the riders. Justin England there on the right-hand side, testing out his legs. Levi Leipheimer out of the saddle. Gerolsteiner rider making the switch to Discovery next year. He's got a water bottle in his pocket. A very, very hot out day. These guys have to make sure to stay hydration because every time up Paris Mountain, it seems to have been 100% effort. And we can see the course profile here. Paris Mountain going up to 1,872 feet. And when you have to do that 5 times, that is going to take some snap out of your legs.
We'll do 5 of the big laps, and then we'll get down to the finishing circuits and do 3 of those. Here we see Frischhorn now. He's left Michael Creed behind, and he's climbing this a little bit ahead of the peloton by himself. Big solo effort by the TIAA Kref rider.
And Will Frischhorn has got rid of Michael Creed, but perhaps Michael Creed sacrificed himself riding on the front as hard as he could to try to get as big a time gap on those strong men that are on the back before they reach Paris Mountain. Now it's up to Will Frischhorn alone to be able to stay in front of that charging group, which right now I think contains most of the favorites.
Tactical play here by TIAA Kref. When you lose time on a climb, the best way to preempt that is to go up and do a little breakaway yourself. He only has a 9-second gap. He will come into the fold quickly, one would presume. Big chase by Levi Leipheimer and Justin England.
Justin England riding very well, riding in the front. Levi still showing that he's strong. Small gears. We haven't seen George Hincapie hit the front at all. He's been staying protected, staying rested back there. Some of the other riders are also staying rested, but they might be hanging on. We're not sure. But Levi, incredibly strong. Every single lap, he's been leading up the front. So far, he is the most powerful rider in this group. But we still have Will Frischhorn in front, and this is the man they have on the radar. And there he is. Levi has him in his sights. Probably going to get him before the top, and Levi is just out of the saddle, driving it up this climb, trying to make it as hard as possible for everyone.
Just a domestic U.S.-only championships this year for the first time in over 20 years. When this race started way back in 1985, it was none other than Eric Heiden to get the very first championships. But what a difference a couple of decades makes for the sport of cycling. It's a gigantic sport now, and Americans, some of the very best in the world, and Levi Leipheimer, one of the best pros in Europe, he's going to come back to the Discovery team. And on his shoulder, you can see big George Hincapie now moving up to the front and looking very, very dangerous. All the locals will know exactly who that is right there with the yellow band and the white sunglasses, George Hincapie.
George Hincapie obviously won that Tour de France stage last year, so we know he can climb. Levi Leipheimer won the Dauphiné. We know he can climb. So this mountain may not present as much of a challenge. And struggling here on the back.
Will Frischhorn dropped with the K to go. He was off the front. Now he is off the back, so the breakaway going right past Will Frischhorn, and he'll struggle to catch back up 1 kilometer from the front, and still Levi Leipheimer on the front doing an incredible turn of power. And you can see Chris Weary still riding really well there. Phil Zijek, Danny Pate struggling to make the tempo, and big George Hincapie just tacked on the back, riding very conservatively and doing a great ride so far.
And attacking on the front, Jelly Bellies. Bajadali trying to go for that KOM again. Levi, you know, is riding a pretty strong pace because we only have about 10 riders. And Bajadali takes a lot of power because the top part of Paris Mountain is steep, taking a lot of good form here from Bajadali to be able to get away from these guys. So he could have something left at the end. And on the back there also, Kodak Gallery, Ben-Jacques Maine hanging in there with this elite group of only about 10 riders. George Hincapie drifting to the back, taking a look around, maybe looking for his team car, get some drinks or some hydration. Elite group of 10 riders. They have the descent. We're going to have one more time up Paris Mountain, and we're going to see from this 10 who's going to be our next national champion. We return to the USA Cycling Pro Road Race Championships presented by Charter Communications. I'm Frankie Andreu with Bob Roll, and we're coming into the final laps of this national championship race. 120 miles, and there's George Hincapie sitting on the back of Burke Swindlehurst. I don't know. Doesn't look like much of a gap, Bob.
Burke Swindlehurst having a very good ride. Hincapie sitting on his wheel, not working, and the riders just behind will come back to the front two, and that is Andreu Bajadali closing the gap to big George Hincapie. What a tiny group it is. One more time up the mountain. A bit of a regrouping on the last time up, but Levi Leipheimer going to the front and just absolutely demolishing the rest of the field and the riders left on the last time up Paris Mountain. They're in the streets of Greenville here. One more time up the big hill, and then the finishing circuits before the finish line. Levi Leipheimer going back perhaps to get a feed from the cars, catching back on. Here, without a team, he's the only Gerald Steiner rider in the field, and that might present a little bit of a problem for a man in a team sport like cycling to come here by himself.
It'll be a very difficult challenge. I mean, maybe that's why the reason he's been riding on the front, totally taking control of the situation. You can see earlier on these riders just been looking at each other, taking turns, jumping across that gap. Blake Caldwell trying to get back up there. Second group, 2 minutes and 21 seconds back. England, Pip, and Will Frischhorn. So this group has shattered a little bit more from that elite group of like 10 or 17 riders. There's guys all over the place, and 2 minutes back is a long, long time to make up.
That is a huge gap to make up. You want to stay in on the front so you don't have to do the work across the flats before the next time up the climb. Will Frischhorn doing a very good ride about halfway up the mountain, coming unglued, and now finds himself about 2.5 minutes behind this group. George Hincapie going back to his car. Only 2 Discovery riders, but at least they have a little bit of support. I think that's a former teammate, Dylan Casey there, giving George the hand up. He got a chance to speak with us about his tactics for this race.
It's possible that there'll be some kind of alliance. We haven't sat down and talked about it yet, but we all would like the jersey to stay amongst us. So we are at a disadvantage because we don't have any teammates, but we may be able to help each other out a little bit.
Well, I think if I had a choice to pick some of the strongest riders in the entire world, I think I'd make an alliance that also with some of the Pro Tour riders, because they are proven. They can win some of the hardest races. And Dylan Casey in the passenger seat, and the new director, I think that's Vyacheslav Ekimov in the driver's seat, directing George Hincapie. And there's Eki, hat on backwards in full race mode no matter where he's at, talking to Levi Leipheimer. So these Pro Tour guys definitely are trying to work together, trying to figure out some tactics towards the end of the race.
That is very interesting. Levi being fed by the Discovery team. Ekimov, 40 years old, did 15 Tours de France, just retired. This was his last tour, and it was a beautiful sight to see him come onto the Champs-Élysées and wave to the crowd a little bit in front of the peloton. But now, no rest for the wicked. He's right straight into the team car, directing both Levi and George. Levi, of course, they will be teammates next year, and maybe working together against the domestic pros in this edition of the US Pro Championships. A little bit of a disadvantage when you come to a big race with no teammates.
Yeah, very big disadvantage. And TIA Kref, you could see the advantage they had with all of those riders up there and being very aggressive and attacking. George Hincapie has to stay rested. He has to save his efforts for later on. Same with Levi Leipheimer. Levi, though, on the front again, working very, very hard, controlling the Paris Mountain. And this is the last time of Paris Mountain. So we're going to see if it's going to have some fireworks, see if we see some explosions. Guys are going to have to attack. At the same time, I think a lot of these riders have been on the limit because of the pace that Levi has been setting. So I don't know if they're going to have anything in them to be able to actually attack.
Hincapie, Pate, Friedman, Leipheimer, and there is Ben Jacquemain having a little bit of trouble immediately. This is the early slopes of the final ascent of Paris Mountain. He is getting dropped right now. The next group behind him is 2.5 minutes down. Still in a chance for a good placing in the US Pro Championships, but there is the front of the bike race. Levi still on the front, doing a crushing tempo now. He's demolished the whole field, and now it's just one last time up this big mountain. They'll do the sweeping descent back towards town. Chris Weary is still there. Bajadali having a great ride for Jelly Belly. Swindlehurst, Zijek, and Friedman. Danny Pate looking like he's having a little bit of a struggle also. Look at Leipheimer and Hincapie now right at the front, and Phil Zijek, the next man to get dropped, he is about to slip off the back.
Phil Zijek giving everything here because he knows this is the last chance to stay with these guys. It's the last time up Paris Mountain. If he can get over this, he can get on those final circuits with these guys and have a chance to attack to be able to go for the jersey. But he can see the gap is starting to open up as Levi Leipheimer's on the front. And Chris Weary is off the back, the current national champion, getting dropped. This is a big, big disappointment for Chris Weary because he wants to be able to try to regain that national jersey. He's there with Burke Swindlehurst, only about 6 seconds, so they do have a chance to regain on the descent.
They can just see in front of them the riders in front, including Bajadali, George Hincapie, and Levi Leipheimer. Chris Weary, he struggled throughout the year, but he's having a great ride today. Not his perfect course, 5 times up this big mountain. Here's our leaders, and that is Bajadali. Danny Pate having a great ride. He did a solid time trial, maybe saving a little bit for the road race. But Hincapie and Leipheimer, this is the situation that they've wanted. And now look at George Hincapie coming to the front and absolutely lowering the boom on the riders in the breakaway. George Hincapie's going to see who can come with him. Perhaps it's only Levi, but I think it was Bajadali immediately into trouble. On the attack, the local hero, big George Hincapie.
Look at George. You can see his eyes. He's focused on the front. He's looking up. He's not looking down. He's not struggling. He knows where the top of this climb. And again, he's lived at the top. He knows this climb like the back of his hand. He knows exactly where the hard parts are, and he's putting the hammer down. Look at the RPMs. He's going very quick. Even he's cracked Levi. Levi seems to be struggling, sitting back. Bajadali is the only one able to respond. And we've seen Bajadali as flying because he's been able to attack on the steepest part of Paris Mountain for the KOM. Very impressive by Bajadali, gradually trying to make his way back to George, but George is focused. He has one thing on his mind, which is to win in this hometown of Greenville.
George Hincapie making the tempo, tapping out the rhythm there. Big gear, just turning it over without any trouble at all. Keeps on taking a look behind to see who can follow. Levi matching the strokes of Bajadali, and Danny Pate, he was dropped from those two, but both of them chasing this man right here, George Hincapie. Look at the focus in his eyes. He wants to get to the top of this climb as soon as possible. Here is the second group out on the road, Chris Weary and Burke Swindlehurst, trying to limit the damage, but they were dropped even before Hincapie's attack, and now they're going to find themselves about 30 seconds behind.
At the bottom of Paris Mountain, this final time up, we had 9 riders in the group. At the top, we have 1. It's George Hincapie all by himself, focused on winning here in Greenville. Looking behind him, he sees Bajadali and Levi Leipheimer trying to gauge their effort to see how fast they're coming back to him. But George is just keeping it very steady, staying within himself, because he knows once he gets down in that descent, he still has 3 circuits in the downtown area.
This climb is not the end of the bike race. Here's Bajadali and Leipheimer 13 seconds behind. What a great ride by Bajadali for the Jelly Belly squad, matching the accelerations on this climb by 2 of the best in the business, Leipheimer and Hincapie.
This is a huge ride by Bajadali. Nobody would have thought he'd been able to be up here, but he has done an exceptional ride climbing. Just behind them was Danny Pate. This group 7 minutes back. Talk about an explosion. Justin England, Frank Pipp, Will Frischhorn, they know their chances of winning a national championship is over. They're just riding, trying to get over the top of this climb and do the descent, get into the circuits. It's been a long, hard day for these guys because for 4 laps before this, they have been hanging on to the rapid pace of Levi Leipheimer.
That's a quite amazing bit of tempo being put in by Hincapie and Leipheimer to distance themselves from this very good group of riders by over 7 minutes. They were all together on the last climb. So this man absolutely hammering off the front. George Hincapie, this is what he does so well, ride the road, and when there's a climb and it's very technical, that's George Hincapie's specialty, and he's waiting, I think, for a moment to see if Levi Leipheimer can catch up. And the wild card in the deck will be Bajadali. I don't think that George and Levi probably know that much about that athlete, but he's been a very steady climber, especially on the domestic scene, and having a great day in the Pro Championships.
Yeah, extremely. I mean, it's a huge ride by the Jelly Belly rider, and Levi, they're coming back. It was 6 seconds. They closed that down very quickly on the descent. So now we have 3 riders. Now, are they going to cooperate? Are they all going to work together? Are they going to try to keep going to stay in front of it? Bajadali, is he going to sit on, or is he going to continue to work with them? So the tactics are still have a lot to be played out as we get towards the finish. Welcome back to the finishing circuits of the USA Cycling Pro Road Race Championships presented by Charter Communications. We have 3 riders in the front, George Hincapie, Bajadali, and Leipheimer. And these 3 riders seem to be working together right now as they enter into those final circuits. And right behind them, 48 seconds, it is doable to bring it back. Chris Weary, Burke Swindlehurst, and Danny Pate. But how hard are these guys going to have to go, Bob?
They're going to have to go absolutely flat out to close the gap from our 2 pre-race favorites, Levi Leipheimer and George Hincapie. And a bit of a surprise there, Bajadali in the front group. What a great ride by that man from Jelly Belly Squad. And here you can see Burke Swindlehurst pulling through with Chris Weary and Danny Pate. They will work very hard together. They know what has to be done. They've got just under a minute gap to close between Leipheimer and a Hincapie group. If Bajadali starts sitting on the front 2, then you could see perhaps a little bit of a slowdown, but that's not the case. George Hincapie going off the front, and that is going to require Bajadali that he'll have to put in some efforts. A little bit of moisture on the road also, so a bit of a technical and slippery descent here on the finishing circuits before the finish line. Just a little ways to go between George Hincapie and the National Stars and Stripes jersey as champion, and George really wants that bad. Danny Pate on the front of the chase group.
Danny Pate on the front, knowing he has to bring back 52 seconds. He's going to need some help from Swindlehurst and Weary to bring that back. The rain is coming down. The corners are going to be a little bit slick, so these riders are going to have to be a little bit extra careful as they race through these final 3 circuits, go through Greenville. And here is Bajadali. You can see George Hincapie in the front. Bajadali has him in the sights, but it's been a very long race. And I don't know if Bajadali is going to have the horsepower to be able to bring back George Hincapie, because, again, George Hincapie, one of the strongest one-day riders in the world. You can imagine the gear that he's in right there and the focus. He keeps looking back, but I don't know if these guys are going to be able to regain the contact with George.
Bajadali seeming to say to Leipheimer, look, I'm dead. You're going to have to close the gap to Hincapie. I cannot work. I'd love to be able to do some, but I can't do it. And George Hincapie putting all the power he has into this breakaway now. He has a small group chasing. That's Leipheimer and Bajadali, and behind them is only 3 riders. Any of those riders left with a chance to win, but big George Hincapie. Big crowd also at the finish cheering him all the way to the line. He's getting close to the finish line, but it's still a ways to go.
There's no mystery there. They know his name. The crowd is cheering for George Hincapie. 2 laps to go on the circuit. George is working. You can see him breathing, wiping the sweat off. Hard little uphill towards the finish, and there's Levi Leipheimer, 13 seconds back. I'm not sure if I see Bajadali on his wheel. It could be Levi Leipheimer has gotten rid of him and is trying to make that bridge alone to get up to George Hincapie through this rain-soaked circuit.
Well, this is a very interesting situation now. Bajadali giving everything on the climbs. Nothing left for the finale here. And Levi Leipheimer going across now. He can see George just a little bit up ahead. And George onto the drier part of the course now. Bit of rain coming to fall. I'm not sure if that will refresh the riders after a long, hot day in the saddle or make them even more fatigued. Big humidity to start the day. And this is George Hincapie just coursing his way through. He knows that he's just a few kilometers away from a national championship, possibly, but Levi Leipheimer trying to get across, and we'll have to see where the chasers are, including Chris Weary and Bajadali, who's in between groups at the moment, and Danny Pate.
Two of America's strongest riders right now chasing each other. George Hincapie on the front, Bajadali chasing here, 36 seconds behind, but right in front of him is Levi Leipheimer. George Hincapie keeps looking back, so maybe he's still feeling good, but he might be feeling the pressure and the struggle from all that effort of going up Paris Mountain, might be feeling the fatigue, so he's trying to judge where Levi Leipheimer is to see how close he's getting, because he still has a full circuit left to do. And Bajadali, you can see the grimace of pain on his face. It has been a very long day for this rider.
It's been an incredibly long, tough day in the saddle for the riders. Here comes Levi Leipheimer through one of those sweeping corners, just 2 seconds behind George Hincapie. What incredibly difficult stage. You have 3 men separated, and they were all doing a time trial. Now big George Hincapie and Levi Leipheimer will join together, and they'll have probably the best chance to stay away. These guys will be teammates next year, so we'll have to see how that works. Levi Leipheimer, great ride by Levi to catch back up to George Hincapie and dropping Bajadali right off of his wheel. Bajadali saying, I cannot work. Levi saying, well, then you have a good ride by yourself off the back.
Teammates next year, but national champion glory on the line here. Does Levi Leipheimer want it, or does George Hincapie want it? I have a feeling they both want it, so I don't know how they're going to work this out. It's going to come down to who's the strongest. And Bajadali, 59 seconds back, third place. Huge effort being in the front with those 3 guys, but he's looking back. He might be afraid of some riders coming up. He doesn't have his head down, so I think you can see the cars right behind there. There could be a chase group coming up that's going to catch Bajadali, and that does not bode well for Bajadali, especially the effort that he's just been doing. And look at the speed difference as Bajadali tries to catch on to Swindlehurst and Pate.
Danny Pate, Burke, Swindlehurst, Bajadali. We don't see Chris Weary. He was with those 2 a little while ago. He's probably just behind this group, maybe reintegrate, but Burke Swindlehurst having a very good ride. Danny Pate really struggling now in the closing miles of this bike race. Bajadali lucky to have a couple of men to ride with. They're spread out across the field. They're trying to see who has enough energy left to do a little bit of work. And Burke Swindlehurst still riding very strong. But these men need to cooperate and work together. And there goes Danny Pate. They need to work together to close the gap between themselves and, of course, the 2 men in front, Leipheimer and Hincapie.
Look at that Swindlehurst attack, and Pate catches on. Is like, that's all you have? I'm going to go again. And Pate is taken away. Bajadali way off the back, just completely exploding, nothing in his left. Swindlehurst in his aerodynamic position, trying to get back up to Pate. But Pate, very strong attack. You can see the grimace on their face. This has been a very long nationals for these riders. I'm sure it's going to be one that these guys are going to remember because it is different. 5 times up Paris Mountain. Look at the crowd going nuts for the 2 Pro Tour riders. George Hincapie from Discovery, Levi Leipheimer from Gerolsteiner. One of these 2 is going to be the national champion. When we come back, we'll find out who it is. We're back with the final miles of the USA Cycling Pro Road Race Championships presented by Charter Communications, and on the front, George Hincapie, Levi Leipheimer, and a national championship jersey is on the line. And George Hincapie says this jersey's going to be mine with a huge attack over Levi.
Big George Hincapie launching hard. Levi struggling, digging deep, looking behind him. That's not a good sign. The race is in front of you, and Levi letting George open up a little bit of a gap inside the final kilometer of the spike race. George Hincapie flying away now, going for the national title.
Look at that. George Hincapie just took about 10 seconds in about 100 meters. Talk about an explosive attack, and he's leading towards that final. We have less than a kilometer to go. George Hincapie realizes what is on the line. His head is down. I don't think there's any reason to be looking back right now. He knows that finish line is in front of him, and he's driving towards the finish. Levi Leipheimer has done an incredible ride, setting that tempo on Paris Mountain, and you can see he's got him in his sights. He's going to try to get back to George because he wants that Stars and Stripes jersey, but George Hincapie in a huge gear powering towards the finish.
Discover Channel Cycling Teams, George Hincapie. He's had a very tough season so far. He broke his shoulder in Paris-Roubaix earlier in the year when he was in the lead group. He is leaving nothing to chance here in the finale. He's left Levi Leipheimer behind. He doesn't want it to come down to a sprint and just a couple of 100 meters to go before the finish for George.
This final uphill 200 meters to the line, how crazy and ballistic is this crowd going to go? His hometown hero, George Hincapie, is getting ready to win national championship jersey. His second one as he zips up his jersey, getting ready to post up for victory. He knows he's got a big lead in front of Levi Leipheimer, and this has been a long time coming, I'm sure, on George Hincapie's mind from the beginning of the year.
Now that's a real pro. A kiss to the wedding ring, zip up the jersey for the sponsors, and salute the crowd.
George Hincapie, our U.S. national champion, 2006. What a great ride. What a challenging course. 5 times up Paris Mountain as he comes in. Hugs and kisses for everybody. Look how excited the Hincapie crowd is. This is a day for George Hincapie. Greenville hometown hero, and he can't believe it. He is so excited, but look, the guy is tired. It has been a very tough race for everyone.
There is his dad right there and his mom, all of his supporters. That's what the crowd came to see. George Hincapie winning the race and Levi Leipheimer doing a great ride to get second place. And here are the chasers, Danny Pate and Burke Swindlehurst.
Going for third place. Danny Pate wanting third place. What an attack. These guys have been going at each other back and forth all day, and Pate is going to get, I think, the last attack on Burke Swindlehurst as Pate is going towards a third place for Danny Pate. A very, very good ride by the TAAA Cref rider. This team rode a great race. Very aggressive, all over the front early on in the race, and Danny Pate hangs on for third. Burke Swindlehurst coming in just behind him for fourth, and he's even looking back with another rider coming in for fifth place, which is Chris Weary from Toyota United, our defending national champion. I'm sure a bit disappointed, but then a very great ride.
Confirmation of those results, George Hincapie, your U.S. Pro Road Race champion, Levi Leipheimer second, Danny Pate, solid ride in third, Burke Swindlehurst fourth place for the Navigators, and Chris Weary, our defending champion, a good ride for fifth place.
George Hincapie proving he's the strongest of the day because he is the one pulling on that Stars and Stripes jersey, getting an extra special podium kiss from his wife, Melanie Hincapie, and she is happy. The crowd is happy too, and the mayor of Greenville got a chance to address the crowd.
You came out with bells and whistles. Congratulations.
Thanks very much. Can Greenville put on a cycling event or what? Even the weather cooperated.
Weather cooperating indeed compared to what kind of chaos you could have this time of the year down here. What a fantastic podium. Danny Pate getting third for TIAA Cref, and Levi Leipheimer second for Gerald Steiner, and big George Hincapie winning the U.S. Pro title. He gave us a chance afterwards to talk about the tactics that played out in the race.
It was definitely a race of attrition. My goal, I hope that everybody went hard up the hill every time. I knew that it was going to be really hard, and I was really dead at the end. But I knew that if I'm dead, everybody else has got to be even more dead. So Levi was really super strong today, and I just attacked him with 1K to go, put everything I had into it, and it worked out. It was great.
After 2 great days of bicycle racing, the USA Cycling Pro Championships come to a conclusion. David Zabriskie, the national champion in front of Chris Baldwin, and 2006 road race champion George Hincapie. And so for Bob Roll, I'm Frankie Andreu. So long from fabulous Greenville, South Carolina.